Hi everyone, it's Vicki and Gavin here from Minerva, and we're here today to talk all things sewing bee. So last night's episode 4, was holiday week, and my mum, who would normally be here on the video with me today, is actually on holiday, which is quite ironic. Yeah, so we've got Gavin here today to chat about the episode with me. So before we get stuck in, what are you wearing, Gavin?
Well, as it's holiday week, I thought I'd bring out something a little bit bright and colourful.
Yeah.
So first of all, fabric-wise, this is our Pollen Passion Minerva exclusive linen viscose.
Lovely.
This was my first time sewing with it. Oh, it's so lovely.
Doesn't it press gorgeous?
It presses beautifully. So for shirts, absolutely fantastic.
And you are like the king of shirts here at Minerva.
I am known to make a shirt or two.
Yes.
So this one's actually a PDF pattern. It's the Laguna shirt from Tropical Research.
Ah, okay.
But if you wanted a similar paper pattern, the Liberty Como collar shirt is good.
Yep.
The new Tony shirt from Emporia Patterns is another good one.
Yeah.
So if you like Tony on last year's Sewing Bee, steal his style.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yourself?
Well, I'm wearing, it's the Victoria blouse pattern, but it's actually been hacked into a dress, which I suppose you can only see the top of it on camera. But yeah, it kind of just extends the line down into a dress. And if you're interested in doing that with the Victoria blouse, we've actually got a video showing you how to hack the pattern into a dress coming very soon on Minerva. So it's a little bit different, isn't it? And I am somebody that wears a lot of tops, but I think every now and then it's just nice to have a dress, and this is very easy to wear, isn't it?
And obviously it looks lovely in the dynamic brushstrokes.
I think, as you may be king of shirts, I think I'm the person that's known for this print here at Minerva, aren't I? Because I just absolutely love this design. So yeah, it's the dynamic brushstrokes print, and it's in the cotton sateen base cloth, which is just beautiful to sew with. Yeah, one of my favourites. So let's get stuck into it. So the first challenge then, the pattern challenge. So it was to make a blouse from a vintage tablecloth.
Yes.
All of which seemed to be embroidered, didn't they?
Yes.
So what did you think of it then?
I thought this was a really interesting challenge to go in for a pattern challenge, because at first it seemed like actually the blouse was fairly simple.
Yep.
So I thought, it's actually all about pattern placement.
Yes, and they did make a big thing. I mean, that was what everything they spoke about was about the pattern placement, wasn't it? Yeah.
You could see that was definitely a huge part of it. But 2.5 hours.
Yeah. And they said that was the shortest amount of time for a pattern challenge yet, didn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd want 2.5 hours to cut that out. Never mind sew it.
So I feel like in order to do that pattern placement really well, you needed some time for that. And again, I think it's one of those where some of the makers really struggled to get it done in time.
Yeah, I think like Marcus didn't finish it, didn't it? And Don, his sleeve went in wrong, didn't it? Bless him.
I felt so bad for him.
I did, yeah, because it looked really good other than that, didn't it? And he must have been kicking himself, mustn't he? I think one of the things, if I'd have been doing it, well, I like to hope I would have thought of this at the time, is to use the edge of the tablecloth, and it saved you having to hem it, didn't it?
Yeah, I think Pasha did that, and it was such a good idea because you just did not have the time to do everything. If you could get away with that on the sleeves as well, that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, to hem 2 sleeves and hem a top, I mean, it would save you a good few minutes in the rush at the end, wouldn't it? So, I think... Yeah, a lot of people were sort of like critiqued in the judging for like the plainness, weren't they? Which I suppose that's just a style choice, isn't it? More than the sewing ability.
Yeah, but then it's one of those. I feel like they were kind of judging them on how they used the embroidery.
Yeah, true.
But then there was such a variety in what embroidery was on the tablecloths.
Yeah.
So Ailsa came kind of joint first.
That was my favourite.
Her tablecloth was really lovely.
Yes, it was like pink sort of embroidered
all kind
flowers.
Of like pastel.
And it was beautiful.
So I think she almost had a bit of a head start. She did a really good job.
Yeah.
But she had a head start because the tablecloth was just so nice.
Yeah, I thought, I did think Susie's was very nice, like the blue and white, very fresh looking one.
Yeah.
She got marked down for showing, but it looked really good.
I was going to say, it's like I would have totally done visible binding, especially when she used the blue and white with it. It looked really nice.
Yeah, if she'd have like done binding that perhaps hadn't been a feature, you know, it had just been plain white and that showed, then okay, you could think like, well, all right, she's just not read the pattern correctly. But the fact she made a feature out of it that looks so good with the top, I thought it's a shame she got marked down for that.
Yeah, I feel like they're in this odd middle ground where they're judging you on your design.
Yeah.
But then they're also going to judge you on the pattern.
Yes.
And you have to kind of do both.
Yeah. You have to stick to the rules of the pattern, yet within those parameters design it as well as you can do. Yeah.
I did think Luke's was really interesting because they were the only one who did something asymmetrical.
Yes, that was clever, wasn't it?
And I absolutely would not have thought to have done that. I would have gone very much pattern balanced and try and match it all.
Yeah, it was a bit different, wasn't it? So that one did stand out to me as well.
They did do it well.
Yeah. I thought such a lovely comment from Janet when she said that, I didn't want to, like she used a different fabric, didn't she, for part of it? And her reason was because she didn't want to cut up into a perfectly good tablecloth in one piece. I thought that was so cute. So lovely, and you can kind of see your point.
I can see your point, and I think there's a lot of the audience who'd probably be like, "Will I be the same?"
Yeah. It's. I think a lot of this year so far, a lot of it's felt so rushed, and there is that element of you know, especially in the transformation, I suppose, but in this challenge with it being.
A transformation.
A transformation, basically. Yeah, it's like, you know, you're cutting up perfectly good things. You want to make sure you're using them in the best, more sustainable sort of way, don't you? So I thought that was a really good comment that she came back with in the critique. Yeah,
totally.
So I think, like we said, so Ailsa's was my favourite.
Mine too.
Yeah, and followed by Luke's. I thought those was just very interesting with that asymmetric kind of opposites.
I think if I was going to pick one that would be the most likely I would wear, if it fitted me, probably Susie's. I really liked the blue and white and the little contrast binding. I thought was actually really cute.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I think there's something lovely about a blue and white combination as well. It's it kind of suits that whole theme as well, doesn't it?
I felt bad for Georgie because she'd gone for that blue and white, but then her two tablecloths didn't really match.
Yeah, and when they were all choosing them right at the beginning, she said that, didn't she? Or they don't quite match. So I reckon there probably wasn't another that she could have chose. Yeah, which is a shame, wasn't it? Yeah. So patterns wise, if you're looking to recreate that sort of look, we couldn't find anything absolutely exact, could we? But we've got two that are very close. So the first one, which is probably the nearest, is the Atelier Jupe Zoe blouse. So with this one, it has a V neckline, very similar to last night. It has very similar shaped sleeves, doesn't it? And then on this one, it has two darts at the bust area, and apart from that, like quite a simple blouse.
Similar.
Yeah.
And I think if you wanted to go down the route of the pattern matching on it, I'm sure it'd be quite easy to crop that into a yoke and then have the two separate parts there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the other one we found is a simplicity pattern, number 9334, and again this one has the V neckline. It has a similar shaped sleeve, but on this one it sort of gathers into that like shoulder seam, which is different to last night, but very pretty. I think this is a lovely one. And just a couple of design details that are a little bit different to the Atelier Jupe one, but an overall look, it gives a very similar look, doesn't it?
It's got that kind of boho relaxed vibe to it.
I think it's all about the sleeve really on that blouse, isn't it?
Yeah.
So fabrics wise, we've chose a few that are along a similar theme, because obviously last night was made out of tablecloths, which is a lovely idea. But if you don't have a tablecloth, or you have them and don't want to cut up into them, cut them up. We've got some really beautiful embroidered fabrics. So the first one is, and we chose the white colourway in this, didn't we?
Most like the tablecloths.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously with these fabrics, I guess the main difference is that you haven't got that pattern placement like you do with a tablecloth, but it does make them easier to sew, doesn't it? And it does mean your top would have an all over embroidered pattern, but you could, like with this one, the background is a plain white cotton lawn. So if you wanted to, you could team it with that and maybe just do the sleeves in the embroidered,
that's a good idea,
or vice versa. But yeah, it's a really pretty one.
I would love a shirt in that.
I would love a dress in that, yeah, or a blouse, yeah. Next one we've got is a broderie anglais, and I think that's a really good type of fabric that's similar to, you know, to give you an effect similar to what the created last night. This one's just one from the huge range we have here at Minerva, and it's a very, very pale pastel pink, and then it has little embroidered flowers on it, and the centre of the flower is this little cut-out hole. Yeah, it's just very, very pretty, isn't it?
It's really pretty, and I think the fact that the holes are quite small, you're not going to get any of that worry about like Janet did with the larger
absolutely
embroidery.
I quite like the idea with this one as well, like to add some hand embroidery details to it, you know, like maybe
nice,
like on the yoke, or I don't know, maybe on the bottom of the sleeve or something,
like colouring some of the flowers,
like each petal being a different colour or something.
That'd be lovely.
It'd be really and I think because it's quite like a regimented flower on this, a repeated flower, it would be quite easy to add that sort of detail. So that's another idea. And then the last one we've got, it's a brand new fabric from Atelier Brunette, and it's a double gauze. We love this, don't we?
Oh, this is coming home with me.
Yeah, I want some of this too. Really, really soft, gorgeous quality, as always, from Atelier Brunette. And these little sort of like motifs that you can see, it's very simple, isn't it?
Yeah.
But they're actually embroidered rather than printed. And it just adds a earthy kind of, I don't know, something to it, this fabric, doesn't it, with it being embroidered?
Yeah, it's a great one for people who are not huge necessarily on print, but want just a little bit of extra texture and detail.
Yeah, don't just want something completely plain. But yeah, I think that one's really, really lovely, and a blouse like that pattern would suit that.
Oh yeah, and there's a few colours of this as well, I think.
Just two colours. The other one's like a caramel sort of, I think they call it pecan colour. Yeah. But yeah, both of them really, really beautiful. So the transformation challenge then. So what are your thoughts on transformation? Me and my mum, it's not our favourite challenge.
I wouldn't say it's my favourite.
No.
It's a funny one because I think last year they had a couple of really interesting transformations, like the canvas.
The art paintings,
which I think was one of the best ones they've done.
Yeah.
But sometimes it can just feel like you're taking perfectly good stuff and ruining it.
Yeah, and only
especially
because
of
the time scale. Yeah, exactly.
But I did think this one was a bit more interesting.
Yeah, so the challenge last night, so they were taking like nautical paraphernalia, weren't they? And they had to transform it into a holiday bag. They got 1.5 hours to do that. And they had the main sort of thing was they had to use some of the rope in some way in the design, didn't they? Which I thought that, I must admit, out of all the transformations so far, this was probably my favourite of what they've done so far.
I think it's the best one so far in the series.
I think I like the fact that we're making a bag. To me, that feels more doable for a transformation challenge. Yeah. And maybe you end up with something more usable at the end of it. Yeah. And I did like the elements of using the rope, because it wasn't just rope as in lengths of rope, there was like the mesh rope.
Yeah, there was lots of different elements that they could get to grips with.
Yeah. So I think the ones that stood out for me anyway, there was obviously Alex's, who she won it, didn't she? With the bag that sort of turned from a tote bag to a rucksack.
Yeah.
Very clever idea.
I think in the kind of timescales they have, to do something that was convertible and practical was really well done. Yeah,
I think she was a deserved winner, wasn't she?
Yeah, totally.
But I really loved Pasha's duck bag. That was so cute. Yeah.
It was a really cute idea. I love the fact that she was like, "Oh, this looks a bit like a duck," and then just ran
with it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, she didn't even it didn't start out intending to be that at all, did it?
Yeah.
I also thought Georgie's, because she kind of made, it was like a 2-for-1 deal, wasn't it? Where she made the rope purse.
Yeah.
Which that was a really like creative use of the rope, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think probably most of us, when we looked at the rope, would probably think, "Oh, I'll use that for the handles."
For straps.
Yeah.
Totally.
But to actually make the purse out of it, I thought that was really cool. And then Janet's, I know, it didn't get score highly. There was, it wasn't perfect by any stretch, but I did think the machine embroidery details were quite cute.
I thought that was really cute.
Yeah.
It was giving me kind of like kids' PE kit
bag. Yeah.
So, it was still practical.
Yeah, I do understand why she didn't score high on it compared to the other ones, because I think they were probably quite a bit more inventive. But yeah, I liked how she had the little grip showing the initials, and
And I felt bad for Marcus, who tried to thread through some of the rope to make a drawstring cord for the top of the bag. And I think had that have worked, that would have been a really nice bag.
You could see the frustration on his face, couldn't you? It was like it was 5 minutes away from finishing.
I mean, that kind of thing, it takes a bit of time sometimes, at the best of times.
And that fabric, I thought, like, because it was quite like it was water repellent, water resistant, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And it's a bit rubbery, so to thread something through
it would resist the whole time.
Yeah, he probably just needed to maybe give himself a bit bigger of a channel to get that rope through. But it was, it's easy said on hindsight, isn't it?
Well, also, in an hour and a half, you could see that they were struggling to sew with that fabric because it was just gripping the foot.
Yeah, they were kind of like holding it at the back of the machine and pulling it through, weren't they? Just to
Which
get
is not ideal in a short space of time.
No, absolutely not. They probably needed like a Teflon foot or something, didn't they? But, you know, who's got time to change your foot when you have an hour and a half to make a bag?
Well, exactly, yeah. But nice to see some bag making in there.
Yeah, I think, was it only like from last series, maybe they've started bringing in bag making? And I'm all here for the bag making. I'm really enjoying watching it. Yeah. It's not something I've done lots of. So it kind of makes me want to make bag.
Yes, it's kind of on my list of things to try soon too. Yeah.
So the final challenge then, the made to measure. I mean, it's always my favourite. Is it yours? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So in last night's episode, they had to make a garment fit to the French Riviera. They were talking a lot about nostalgic glamour, weren't they? And that it had to be, I guess, because of like the heat and being on holidays, it had to be light, it had to be comfortable, it had to be chic looking. And I thought it was interesting how Esme mentioned they were looking for details and sort of like complicated parts to it I guess to really show what they can do, I suppose.
I thought it was a really interesting made to measure in that I don't know that it was super clear what they wanted.
Yes.
So it's like, we want summery, but we want chic. We want it to be detailed, but easy and breezy.
Yeah,
like the whole kind of almost little twist of we've asked for a garment, it doesn't have to be a full outfit.
Yes, yeah.
Which I think maybe threw some people. Yeah,
because quite a few of them did try to make the whole thing, didn't they? And maybe, fell down because of that, because they didn't finish it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do agree with you about that, because I think if I'd been given that brief, I'd have been like, French Riviera? I think I would have had to do a bit of Googling as to what that. Yeah. But I suppose having seen the garments last night, I guess the theme became clearer to me. Yeah. And they had 4 hours to do it in, didn't they?
4 hours. I mean, anyone who was attempting a cord set in 4 hours, or even like a really nicely fitted pair of trousers in 4 hours, that's not easy.
No, absolutely.
I'm glad it was them and not me.
Yeah, same, absolutely. So then, we'll run through the contestants then, shall we start with Luke?
Yes.
The shirt kind of reminds me a little bit of the one you've got on.
Well, as you said, I make a lot of shirts.
Yeah.
So when Luke got on there and said that they were going to make a pair of trousers and a shirt, and then Luke said they can make a shirt in an hour.
In an hour? When I was watching it last night, I thought of you, because I thought, I bet Gavin wishes he could make a shirt in a shirt rather than an hour.
Because to be honest, the shirt I'm wearing is probably quite similar style to the one they made.
It's got a similar collar, hasn't it?
Yeah. And something like this would probably take me about 8 hours. Yeah. So to do this and a pair of trousers was a tall ask. Yeah. And you could kind of see that the finish wasn't perfect.
Yeah. They used, it was a broderie anglais fabric, wasn't it? And I think that probably added an element of complication. And
I think with a fabric that's slightly sheer, it really shows any imperfections. Yeah. Although Patrick said, the collar was too wide. I'm like,
it's the style. That's the style.
Maybe you wouldn't wear it, Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was because of the fabric. It maybe felt a little bit bulky.
Possibly.
I don't
think generally both of their garments would have just benefited from a bit of a press at the end.
Yes, yeah.
I think they were harsh. I think they were harsh on them.
Yeah. So pattern wise, again, we've tried to find some patterns from our range here at Minerva that are as similar as possible to the ones that they used last night. So for Luke's, for the shirt, we found Simplicity 9758. And as always, we'll pop some images up so you can see the patterns we're talking about. I think that's quite similar. It's a Norris pattern from Simplicity.
Yeah, it's a very nice one.
Yeah,
it's a little bit oversized, which I think suits that style.
Yeah. And then we also found, if you wanted to sew like a woman's version of it, there's the Stylock Albi shirt, which again has that kind of oversized feel, very similar collar.
Yeah, slightly kind of dropped shoulder feel to it.
Yeah. And then for the trousers, we found Burda 7046. I think it was hard to see some of the details on the trousers because the shirt covered obviously a lot of the top bit, didn't it?
But full waistband kind of pleats at the top.
Yeah, there's sort of like angled pockets, which that pattern has. So I think you could create a very similar
be a good
look.
Choice.
Yeah. Susie's then, we'll go on to hers next. So this was the multi-panelled, like sort of long skirt and then a little crop top that she made out of a tablecloth, didn't she? I mean, it could have been better with more time, couldn't it?
Yes.
She knew that.
I think she made a good choice. I think a crop top and a long skirt is quite classic.
Yep.
And in theory, a bit more achievable in the time than some other things.
Maybe just all the panels in the skirt that added a lot of time.
It took a lot of time. And I don't know that this was the place for a tablecloth upcycle.
No, I agree.
If you're going kind of French Riviera, kind of very chic, fashionable.
Yeah.
Maybe that would have looked, even what she did, a little bit sharper and just a plain fabric or like a nice pattern.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, pattern-wise with this, we found something similar, but on Susie she had the bow at the back, didn't she? Whereas I know this one doesn't. But the pattern we found was New Look 6722. It's a similar skirt, but it's without all the panels, but it will make it easier. Absolutely. And then it had a very similar sort of shape to the little sort of crop top, didn't it? So I think you could create a very similar look with that pattern. Alex's jumpsuit. So this was the very oversized, like lots of fabric, stripy green, and they really liked it, the judges, didn't they?
I thought it was cute.
Yeah.
And I think going with something almost like a Breton stripe was a bit of a nod to the... Yeah,
I didn't think of that last night, but it's obvious now you've said it.
I think it was kind of... But the fact that it was kind of green, it was kind of half Breton stripe, half deck chair. But it was very much giving kind of summer holidays.
Yeah. And I think the oversized nature of it, I mean, certainly makes it easier to fit. So she did good choosing that, didn't she? Yeah. Now again with this one, we couldn't find a pattern exactly the same, could we? But we've got a couple of options that are similar. So you found the Stylock Mildred jumpsuit, didn't you?
Yeah, I think that's got that kind of relaxed, quite wide trousers, legs.
Square neckline, and the other one we found was McCall's 8457. So this one is oversized again, but it has that sort of like panel across the top that was maybe... Up here was a little bit more similar to Alex's last night, but either of those patterns you're going to be able to make something very similar in that one. Next up, should we talk about Ailsa's? So they were like the star of the show, weren't they? The judges loved them.
What did you think of them?
They were very wide, weren't they? I think they were fabulous in the kind of over the top sort of width and everything.
They had a lot of drama to them.
They did, yeah. For me personally, to wear something like that, I think I would find that a bit like too much.
Tripping over yourself.
Yes, it does take a lot. But in terms of walking down the catwalk, I mean, I do think they looked.
And she sewed them beautifully.
She did.
The fit was really good on them too.
Now, what she thought in terms of she made one garment and did it very well, didn't she? Versus some of the others that, tried to do a whole outfit and didn't finish.
I think it's one of those. It's difficult to then judge.
Yeah.
It's like if it had just been a trousers challenge, and quite a few did trousers.
Yeah.
Then hers were the best.
Yes.
And she did the most work on them.
Yeah.
But I do feel like it feels like you're missing out on something, not having a full outfit.
Yeah.
But she wouldn't have been able to do a top and those trousers at the same time.
Maybe if the brief had been more specific, that they either had to make one garment or an outfit, whichever, then maybe it would have been easier to judge and compare.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of that, the actual pattern though, like the construction of them and the detail, just how all those pleats worked, and the fact she got such a good fit on trousers in 4 hours. I mean, it was
an amazing bit of sewing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, patterns-wise for that, we've come up with 3 different options, haven't we? None of which are exact. I think the pleat at the back of the trousers is what's mainly missing on these 3.
Yeah.
But we've got 3, they're very close.
Yeah.
So we've got New Look 6756, and these ones look pretty similar from the front, but they have an elastic waist at the back.
Right,
so that bit's different, but I kind of like the idea of that because...
Especially for a bit of summer comfort.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you're going out for a nice meal, a bit of elastic waist is no bad thing, is it? Yeah. Then we've got Simplicity 9925. So these, again, are a really sort of like wide leg trouser. But they're an easier choice because they don't have all the pleat details. So, and I do think that, you know, if you're going to sew them yourself, there's a lot of work in that, and maybe
a lot of fabric too.
Oh yeah, and maybe not everyone's quite up to that skill set yet. So this may be an easier choice that's maybe a bit more accessible for some people.
Yeah.
And then we have Vogue 1772, which is maybe the most similar, because this one, you know, very full again, and they have pleats back and front.
Yeah.
So the pleats worked differently to Ailsa's last night, but they're very similar. Yeah. So Lauren's then. So this was definitely a wow moment down the catwalk.
This was out there. She definitely took the kind of resort beach and ran with it.
Yeah.
And I must say, I really warmed to Lauren this episode. She just seemed like she's so much fun.
Yeah, she does, doesn't she? Yeah. I think that. So the top was like almost like a bikini style top.
Yeah,
in a way,
kind of halter neck crossover.
Yeah. And yeah, I suppose it did gape a little bit at the sides, didn't it? But I mean, that sort of pattern, you know, there's kind of a lot of show anyway.
And the model showed she wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And then the trousers, I mean, I think the fit could have been better if she'd had more time.
Yes.
But I loved the idea of them.
I think her vision was fantastic. This idea of kind of an opaque, almost kind of pants. But then creating these kind of chiffon legs that just swished around was really clever.
And kind of quite brave to show in chiffon again. She did that the first episode, I think.
Yeah, she's definitely not afraid of a slippery fabric.
Absolutely not, no. So patterns wise, we're pretty sure we found the top pattern, haven't we? So it's the Vicki Sews Civvy top, and I mean it just looks exactly the same, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, crossover, tight at the back.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the trousers, we found a pretty similar one with McCall's 8292. So it has that shape at the top, and sort of like gathered fabric into that. That, you know, on the pattern obviously it doesn't show it in a chiffon, but you could quite easily imagine that making a very similar pair of trousers, I think.
Yeah.
Next up, Pasha. Now, I loved Pasha's look.
I felt so bad that she wasn't able to get it finished in time, because I feel like if it had, this would have been my favourite.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was very chic looking.
I feel like she nailed the brief absolutely. Yeah. It was giving that kind of French Riviera, Cannes Film Festival kind of really smart vibe. Those kind of nautical trousers
with the buttons at the front. And then just that twist in that neckline at the top. It was quite a simple look, but very stylish, wasn't it?
Yeah. When you saw it coming down the runway from a distance, I was like, wow, that looks amazing. Yeah. Then you could see that the top was no way finished.
No. I mean, she did good, really, to get it to a place where it was wearable, didn't she?
Absolutely.
It could be worn, And then we found 2 patterns that are pretty similar, the trousers especially. So we've got Berda 6573, and you can see on this pattern it's like a nautical, that kind of sailor style trouser, isn't it? With the buttons, but they're just there as like a faux detail.
Which makes it much easier.
Absolutely, yeah. And then the top, so we've got, it's a knit top pattern, Simplicity 5555, and one of the views, it has that twist detail. It looks very similar. It's just the back of this top is
is it a tie detail on
yeah,
it?
it's like a halting neck, isn't it, with a exposed bit at the back, whereas Pasha's last night was a full back, wasn't it? But it's going to give you a very, very similar look, that, isn't it? Next up, Don. So I thought his thought process in making trousers without that external seam,
that was really interesting.
Clever. Yeah.
And I love his thinking of what do you need that seam for? Well, I mean, pockets probably, but other than that, I was like, actually, no, that's quite clever, and he's made something a little bit simpler then, and he cuts out part of the process. And when you're that pressed on time, that makes a lot of sense.
I'm sure it was Don last night that commented saying, like, I think he was like halfway into this challenge, and he was saying how like, it's just it's a race now against perfection versus getting it finished. And I think you can see like how much it sort of frustrates and pains him.
I feel so bad for him, because he's obviously one of these sewers who takes his time, does things really well, and clearly has got a lot of knowledge. And having to sacrifice some of that to get things done.
It's the sacrifice, hard. Isn't it? Just to get it finished. So I think it was a clever edit. I think the top maybe let him down a little bit last night, only because it was rushed. And
it wasn't giving me French Riviera overall.
No, I suppose not. Certainly not as much as some of the others. But in terms of patterns, we found some ones that are pretty close, I think. So we've got a butterick pattern for the trousers, number 6851, and this is a trouser pattern that has no side seam. So I think I've never sewn anything like that. Have you? No, I think I quite like the idea of trying that and seeing how it fits.
It would be a good one to try.
I
think it's a Palmer Pletch pattern, isn't it? So that's another thing that I've never tried.
The tissue fitting method.
So that'll be an interesting one to give a go.
And then the top we found Burda 6525, and it's a very similar sort of shell top with the princess seams. I think that top would have looked nice if you'd had more time to press it and just finish it a little bit more. But he knew that, didn't he? So next we've got Marcus. So this was the off-shoulder ruffle top and the very unusual like asymmetrical skirt.
That skirt was really a moment.
I
love when Patrick said it was almost like a kind of sunburst in itself. I was like, I can see that.
I think that the whole kind of look, I think with it being off shoulder, kind of fitted the brief quite well. It felt very holiday.
It's giving that kind of Brigitte Bardot in the sunshine kind of vibes.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of patterns for this, so for the top we found McCall's 7757, so a very similar off-shoulder little crop top that would be lovely to wear on holiday. The skirt, oh my goodness, we've searched high and low and cannot find a skirt. Has he self-drafted it? I'd love to know. But that's a complicated one to self-draft, isn't it? With all those...
asymmetric and then pleats going into an asymmetric.
So if anyone knows what that pattern is, tell us in the comments. The most similar thing I can find, which you'll see, it's not the same. But we've got McCall's 7725, and I've chose it because it's sort of asymmetric. So, it goes down at one side, shorter at the other, and it's got a little ruffle detail. So, there's something.
Similar vibes.
Exactly. But that's the absolute nearest I could find on that one. So, Janet. So, that was it was like a wrap over top, wasn't it? With the fastening down one side, little shorts.
Giving those kind of beach pyjama vibes that they were talking about.
I did kind of agree with them on the fabric choice.
It was a choice. I'm not sure it said the beaches of Nice to me.
No. I think, was it like a quilting cotton fabric that she'd used?
And it seemed a glittered quilting cotton.
I think maybe like the structure of that fabric. Like
you probably wanted something a bit more drapey, a bit softer.
Even if it had been that same print, but maybe in like, I don't know, a viscose or something, I think it would have worked better. But it just maybe felt a little bit structured and boxy for that style.
I mean, it did feel very Janet, and I imagine she'll go away and she'll happily wear that.
Yeah, absolutely. And when she said, like, well, I'd wear it to French, and like, well, you know, and that's what sewing's all about. It is just personal taste, really, that dictated her kind of the critique she got, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of we struggled again with patterns with this, didn't we? I think she's probably used maybe a vintage style pattern. I
think she drafts a lot of her own stuff as well.
Yeah, true.
So,
but we did find a wrap sort of top that's a similar idea, and that was New Look 6601. You'll see from the image, you can see where we're coming from in that it wraps over and ties at the side. So that'll give a similar look. And last but not least, we have Georgie. So she made the bias cut, very slinky skirt, and then a little sort of cropped-ish sort of like shell top on, very simple. I do think for the amount of work put into it, you know, especially with sewing satin on the bias, it was a very simple look, wasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like it didn't have the impact to reference how much work she put into it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Which was a bit of a shame.
Yeah. It's just, and I think maybe the colour choice as well maybe felt a bit underwhelming. Had that been in something maybe brighter and bolder. Yeah,
there wasn't that much contrast in colours between the top and bottom, so they didn't match. They weren't meant to match, but they didn't. Yeah,
they just didn't sing down the catwalk either, did they?
So in some ways my eye was drawn a bit to kind of the bra top underneath.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
So I was like,
yeah, it probably.
But she'd done a decent job of sewing them.
Yeah, and I mean she sewed French seams, didn't she? She cutting satin on the bias. I mean it just takes time, doesn't it? And time is what she did not have.
And again, doing all that in 4 hours to make those 2 items is not easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. Now patterns for this, I think we found 2 good ones. So we've got the Style Arc, do you know, a bias cut skirt. It's like very simple, similar length. It's just the standout feature is it's cut on the bias, and that's what gives it that beautiful drape and just how it fits, isn't it? And then for the top we found the New Look 6483. It's one of those patterns that seems to have been going forever, but a very nice basic simple shell top with different like neckline options. So there's one there that's similar to what Georgie made. I think there were some good ones. So what did you think then of who went home, the winner?
I think in terms of winner, I can see why Ailsa won.
Yeah.
I think the garment was probably the best garment that was there.
Yeah.
And so when you're picking garment of the week, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think, was it the best outfit that was there?
Yeah.
If Pasha had finished her top, Pasha would have been my.
Yeah, I agree with what you said.
I think with where it was, I think Ailsa probably is a fair winner.
Yeah. Just with Pasha as if she'd finished a very, very close second or possibly our winner, And then for Janet that went home. I
felt so bad for her, but I think there's one of those, if you're not going to follow the rules of the pattern challenge, you need to really kind of pull it up in the made to measure. Yeah. I think Marcus was on really shaky ground.
Yeah, and is that maybe 2 weeks with Marcus now, isn't it? So hopefully he can sort of pull it out of the bag next week.
His made to measure was really good, especially that skirt. Yeah. So I think he kind of pulled himself out of the danger zone there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as always, we've picked what we would have sewn had we have been competing last night, haven't we? So, yeah, we've gone with, we've obviously fit the brief with the French Riviera, and I guess we've kind of looked at it, we've done it on hindsight, knowing what they sewed last night.
Yes,
so
definitely.
It cleared up that brief for us a little bit, didn't it? So do you want to go first, see what you've chose?
Yeah, sure.
I love what you've chose, by the way.
Well, for me, French Riviera, that kind of chic, kind of Parisian French style, says to me kind of navy and cream.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go wrong with a bit of navy. So this is fabric that is already on my to-do list. Yeah. I am absolutely making something with this.
Like, this is literally your piece of fabric.
This is literally my fabric. So this is our brand new Ecovero linen look viscose.
Yeah.
So it's made with viscose, but it's got that lovely texture of linen.
Yeah.
And this is called Shibori Stars. And I just love this kind of shibori print style.
It's like a tie,
kind of tie-dye effect.
Indigo
and so
blue.
it's I like a bold print, but this is almost a bit more of a subtle print, which I felt suited maybe the challenge better.
Yeah. I think it would be very chic in this, very classic.
So what I was going to pair with this is brand new pattern out today, and that is the Tilly and the Buttons Nell.
Which I love it. Absolutely love this pattern.
So many options with this one.
Yeah.
But what I would do is the tie front blouse version.
Yeah.
I'd probably do the fairly simple sleeves just to save on time as much as anything. But I think the tie front design with this, I think, would be really lovely.
Yeah.
And with the Nell, it's got like a hidden placket underneath with poppers. So the tie front, it's not going to gape, so you're not going to be exposing yourself on the seafront.
Would you have done that on the sewing bee in 4 hours? Or would you have left the placket off?
I might have just sewn it shut. Or sewn the model into it.
Yeah.
But to kind of match with that, I would have liked to have done some trousers.
Yeah.
And for that, I picked out this Minerva Core Range linen look cotton.
Bottom. Yeah.
So again, this is giving that...
it's a very similar weave, actually. Both,
I think they really complement each other. They've got a very similar kind of texture to them. I think this kind of brings up the white in here. I might even do the ties on the Nell in this so that they stand out a bit more.
Very nice.
Now, I am not going to tackle a complicated pair of trousers in 4 hours.
With a top to make
top to make. So the choice for me is the Simplicity 9595, which I think is about the simplest pair of trousers you could possibly make.
Such a smart move.
So there's only really one size. It's almost like a zero waist pattern.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a waist tie channel at the front, and then you kind of wrap it round.
Yeah. So
and
like the pant legs kind of like overlap, don't they?
Yeah, so you get some of that kind of swishy vibe.
Yeah, but you get the fullness that would swish
and then also you get almost a tie front, which I think would match with the Nell top quite well.
Yeah.
But
you could even do the tie maybe in this, couldn't you?
Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, kind of a bit mix and match. But you could easily do that in an hour.
Yes, yeah. I think that's a really clever idea.
And leave yourself time to do the rest.
Yes, and spend time on this, because I think, especially if you did the tie detail one,
just turning through those straps is going to take a little bit of time.
But I think as well, walking down the catwalk, I think the top will be what you saw first, especially with being in print, and the trousers will come secondary. So it's like put all the time into the showstopper piece. Yeah. I think that's a very smart choice, but I think it will look fabulous as well.
Well, also, although this is a women's pattern, I'm tempted to make these for myself because I don't see any reason why they wouldn't fit a male shape.
No, not at all.
I'm liking how simple they are.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all here for the simple patterns, especially when it comes to trousers.
Absolutely.
So my choice then, so I've gone a little bit different to you, and I've gone with the whole kind of like crop top look and easy breezy, swishy kind of skirt. I don't know, something about wearing something like that on holiday that, I think for me, I wouldn't wear something like this unless I was on holiday.
Oh, yeah.
So the chance to kind of wear it on holiday, I would take full sort of opportunity for that. So the pattern I've chosen is, so it's McCall's 8482 and 8483. It's one of those patterns that, because it covers such a great size range, it's actually under 2 numbers. So the top is, it's a little crop top. It's elasticated or gathered in at the bottom and the top, and then little puff sleeves. I don't think that will be too complicated to sew. I think you could whip that up relatively quickly. And then the skirt, it's just like an elasticated waist skirt with different panels that are all gathered. So like a little ruffle detail at the bottom. Now I think the gathering would take quite a bit of time to get right, but I think with the top being quite simple,
gives you that leeway.
Yeah, I think it's relatively achievable. Yeah, maybe in a little bit more than 4 hours. But then with this, the star of the show, I think with mine is the fabric, and it's I'll just take it off the mannequin here. So it's a brand new fabric. We are officially launching next week at Minerva. Yeah. So you're getting a little sneak peek, and it is a pure silk crepe. And just look at that gorgeous print. I absolutely love it.
That is just stunning.
Isn't it beautiful? And the name of this print is Petal Prowess. I think that's gorgeous. To me, that is very classy, enough colour and sort of I guess enough colour for it to feel very holiday, but I think it would just look very sophisticated.
Yeah, there's something about that kind of underlying kind of almost olivey green tones that I think quite Mediterranean.
Mediterranean, yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, that's the sort of the word I was trying to pull out my brain then. But yeah, I mean, sewing in silk, I suppose, in 4 hours. But
rather you than me.
Yeah, but with this is it's a slightly heavier silk crepe, and it's not as slippy and shifty as you might think. So I think that'd be doable. Yeah, and I think
it would look beautiful.
Yeah. Coming down that catwalk, head to toe in a cord in that. Ooh, I think it'd be gorgeous. So then that's holiday week. So I really enjoyed that episode. I think
there was some really good sewing this week.
I feel like they're coming into their own a little bit.
Yeah, you can see that some of them are really getting quite comfortable now and showing off some of their skills. And there's some really good skills there.
Yeah. It every year it seems to take a few episodes for them to just settle into it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, I really enjoyed it. And let us know in the comments below. So what did you think? Did you agree with the winner? Did you agree with who went home? I think we did agree with it, didn't it? But it's just always sad seeing someone go, isn't it? You want it to carry on forever, don't you? Nobody
Sadly,
go home.
no.
Yeah. So then next week we've got, I always struggle saying this, reduce, reuse, recycle, which is like a week they kind of run every year, but they have done for the last few years, haven't they?
Yeah.
So what was it they said? So it was they were going to make a quilted bag using scraps that are trapped between layers of organza.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
interesting one.
I have actually done that technique back when I was at university. Yeah, not to make a bag, but making fabric like that, and I've kind of done it where you trap it between layers of water soluble fabric as well.
Oh, that's clever.
You've obviously got to put a lot of stitching in to then hold it, but it does create a very interesting fabric.
Okay,
and I think if they use the right colours in those scraps, I think that will probably be key.
Avoid the brown, which Esme doesn't like.
Oh yeah, exactly. And then the second, so they had to cherry pick items from textile waste to create a brand new item, and they seem to be talking about colour sort of choice with that as well.
Yeah, they seem to be pulling together different garments of the same colour to make something new with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could be anything.
Anything. Yeah, so it's very
I think that will suit the really creative ones very well. So I reckon we'll get some really good stuff.
Yeah, and maybe the ones that struggle with that side of it might just be a bit overwhelmed with, I could make anything, so it's too much choice. Yeah. And then the last one, transforming wedding dresses into party wear. I honestly don't know how I feel about that.
I think it's interesting that Janet, who was the one who didn't want to cut up a tablecloth, I would have been really interested to see what her reaction would be to doing that. Because I think cutting up a wedding dress is something a lot of people just wouldn't consider doing.
I wouldn't do that to my wedding dress. I mean, I know it's kind of just stuck there in a wardrobe, never to be worn again, but I love having it. I just love, and the fact that like me and my mum made my wedding dress, I could never cut that up.
No.
So for me, it would have to be a wedding dress that I wasn't emotionally attached to.
Yeah.
But on the other flip, the other side of it, if you can make something into something that's usable and beautiful that would have otherwise gone to landfill, then why not?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's a waste, I guess, for a beautiful dress that's maybe the most expensive one in your wardrobe to just sit there unused. So I'm really interested to see what they do with it.
And it seems like they're going to be using like dyes and paints and things maybe to...
Yeah.
And that's something I don't think we've seen on the bee before. So
no, not much of.
No.
So yeah, again, I think this really suits some of the really creative people. I do wonder how someone like Don, who's more of a technical sewer, will cope with challenges like that.
Maybe it might kind of unleash his creative side, and
maybe.
We will soon find out.
We will.
So thank you very much for watching today. We hope you enjoyed that. Do let us know in the comments, what you thought of the episode last night. Are you looking forward to next week's challenges? Could you find any better pattern picks than what we found? Especially on that skirt. But we'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And for now, we'll see you next week.
Ta-ra.